Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to the Battle of the American Civil War with your host, Bang and Dang. Coming off of the first major battle of 1862 and pretty much the Union's first major win of the whole war. The Battle of Fort Donelson, where Grant came in and wiped the floor with the old Confederates. Are reeling. They are reeling as we head into three battles today. Battles of Valverde, Battle of Island number 10, and the Battle of Pea Ridge. Island number 10 and Pea Ridge both being Class A battles, but not enough for them to get their own episode because apparently not really much happened. Just important strategic wins for the Union. Although, in this episode, the Confederates do break their losing streak with the very first Battle of Valverde, but that was in New Mexico. They kind of own that territory out there, as we've seen.
right.
Union get the other Class A battles going on in today's episode. And we're going to start with the Battle of Valverde in New Mexico, taking place on February 20th through the 21st in the it's also known as the Valverde Ford, was near the town of Valverde at a ford of the Rio Grande in Union-held New Mexico territory in what is today, obviously, the state of New Mexico. The Confederate Brigadier General Henry Hopkins Sibley envisioned that he would invade New Mexico with his army, defeat Union forces, capture the capital city of Santa Fe, and then march westward to conquer California and add it to the territory of Confederacy. Sibley's first step was to gather an army in El Paso and lead it north through Confederate Arizona to Fort Thorne.
Good luck. From there, he would advance along the Rio Grande, avoiding the desert of the Jornada del Muerto, with the objective of capturing Fort Craig.
Well, Craig.
And the supplies in the fort and defeating the Federal Army under Colonel Edward Canby. So he wants to take Fort Craig.
Going to take Fort Craig from the Federals. Federals.
January 3rd, 1862. Sibley left El Paso with 3 regiments and 1 partial regiment of mounted Texans, comprising of 25 hundo and 10 officers and men. Fort Craig, 140 miles north of El Paso, was the major obstacle in his path. Canby awaited him there with 3,800 men, of whom most were infantry. Only 1,200 of Canby's men were seasoned soldiers, though. The remainder consisted of 2,000 New Mexican volunteers, 100 Colorado volunteers, and 500 militia. Kit Carson commanded the 1st Regiment of New Mexican Volunteers.
Good for him.
Kit Carson.
Union forces, we got the Department of New Mexico, Colonel Edward Canby. We had the regular cavalry, 1st U.S. Cavalry, 2 companies, 3rd U.S. Cavalry, 5 companies. And then we have some regular infantry consisting of the 5th U.S. Infantry, 5 companies, 7th U.S. Infantry, 3 companies, and the 10th U.S. Infantry, 3 companies. Some artillery, which was McRae's Battery, formed from elements of the 3rd Cavalry. We got Colorado Volunteers, B Company, 2nd Colorado Infantry for there. New Mexico Volunteers, we got the 1st New Mexico, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th New Mexico Infantry. We got Graydon's Independent Cavalry Company, led by Captain James Graydon.
Nice.
New Mexico Militia had the 1st and 2nd New Mexico Militia there as well. So,
Oh, shit. Look at that.
and Confederates don't have really anybody. Their Army of New Mexico, led by Brigadier General Henry Hopkins Sibley, 2nd Texas Mounted Rifle Battalion, 4th Texas Mounted Rifle Battalion, and the 5th and 7th Mounted Rifle Regiment. Provisional Artillery Battalion formed from the elements of the 2nd, 4th, and 5th Texas.
Okay. So some Texans up in New Mexico. See, that's what I liked about Confederate. They kept their group small.
Well,
Only a couple leaders. A couple top guys. They had what? 1, 2, 3,
each
4.
regiment had their own.
Right. Look at these guys.
Just like the Unions.
All these guys are
Yeah, I mean, that's just because they had a bigger army.
not by that much. Only by like 1,000.
You'll see the next 2 battles. Confederates got pretty comparable size stuff as the Union did.
Sibley led his brigade within 15 miles south of Fort Craig during the evening of February 13th, judging the fort to be too strong to be taken by assault.
Yeah, you think? It's a
Sibley
fort.
deployed his brigade into a line for the next 3 days, hoping to lure Federals into the open, but Canby, not trusting his volunteer troops, refused to attack.
Well, good for him.
As they were down to a few days' rations, the Confederates could not wait indefinitely. So at a council of war on the 18th of February, Sibley ordered to He ordered the army to cross the Rio Grande and move up the eastward side of the river to the ford near Valverde, 6 miles north of Fort Craig, hoping to cut Union.
So he went around.
Right, hoping to cut Union communications between the fort and their headquarters in Santa Fe. Okay,
it's strategy.
Right.
By the 20th, the Confederate Army, under cover of the hills between it and the river, was opposite Fort Craig. Confederate Colonel Thomas Greene attempted to place artillery on the heights overlooking the river and fort, but Canby had anticipated the move, forcing the Texans to make a dry camp on the night of the 20th. About midnight, Union Captain James Creighton tried to blow up a few rebel picket posts by sending mules loaded with barrels of fused gunpowder into the Confederate lines, but the faithful old Army mules insisted on wandering back towards the Union camp before blowing to bits. Oh, jeez. Right, they were like, no, dude, I don't want to go out there. I've been in this damn fort for how many months? Although the only casualties were the 2 mules, the explosion stampeded a herd of Confederate beef cattle and horses into the Union's lines, so depriving Greene's troop of some much-needed provisions and horses. So it kind of worked out for them. They got some Confederate beef now, huh?
All right, geez, OP.
Yeah.
What the hell are these guys thinking? The next morning, February 21st.
Ooh, the Confederates? What are they thinking, herding their own food around? They're just they had to do that back in the West.
What I'm saying. I'm talking about the explosives on the mule.
Well, I mean, it was a good idea. They didn't anticipate the idiots coming back. Well, I guess they're not idiots. They're like, no, I want to be here.
Get food and water.
And blew up mules. Don't let PETA get a hold of that one.
Right. Next morning, February 21st, 1862. Sibley sent an advance party consisting of 4 companies of the 2nd Texas Mounted Rifles under the command of Major Charles Pyron. He sent them to scout ahead of the Valverde Ford, with the 4th Texas Mounted Rifles under Lieutenant Colonel William Reed Scurry following close behind.
Oh, he was scurrying behind.
Right. Don't you scurry. The rest of the brigade remained in camp, intending to follow later. Okay.
Union scouts informed Canby of the Confederate movements towards the north. Canby then sent a mixed force of infantry, cavalry, and artillery to the ford under the command of Colonel Benjamin S. Roberts of the 5th New Mexico Infantry. Infantry and artillery slowed the column down, so Roberts sent Major Thomas Duncan ahead with the cavalry to secure the ford.
Following Roberts' departure, Canby sent additional reinforcements from Fort Garrison and assigned several companies of New Mexico volunteers to watch the movements of the enemy, threaten his flanks and rear, and impede his movements as much as possible.
So do what an army should do.
Right. When the Confederates under Pyron arrived at the eastern side of Valverde Ford, they found that the Union forces were already there, blocking their passage. Oh man. Pyron sent for reinforcements from Fort Texas while his men took cover in an old riverbed, which served as an excellent defensive position.
I bet it did.
Nice.
At first, despite having a numerical advantage, the Union cavalry deployed it in a skirmish line instead of trying to drive the Confederates out of their position.
They should have done.
This forced the Union artillery to remain on the western bank of the Rio Grande. When Scurry arrived, he deployed his regiment to Pyron's right, with the regimental artillery on the Confederate left. Although they had gained a numerical superiority, the Confederates were mostly armed with short-range shotguns and pistols, which could not reach Union positions 300 yards away. No rifles. The Confederate howitzers could not reach the Union artillery on the far bank of the river. Mm-hmm. Well, they're okay.
You got a little standstill there.
Don't take pistols to a war.
Right. Meanwhile, Canby ordered most of the remaining garrison at Fort Craig to march towards Valverde, leaving behind some militia to guard the fort. Oh yeah, you don't need too much; just a nice regulated militia. Right. When he arrived, Canby moved most of his command, including the artillery, to the eastern bank, leaving the 1st New Mexico Volunteers under Carson and the 2nd New Mexico Volunteers under Colonel Miguel Piano on the western bank as a reserve.
Okay.
By early afternoon, the remainder of the Confederate force, the 5th Texas Mounted Rifles under Colonel Thomas Greene, and a battalion of the 7th Texas Mounted Rifles under Lieutenant Colonel John Sutton, they arrived at that battlefield, which in need of water and denied access to the river by defending Union forces.
Oh, no water for you guys.
We need water. Go ahead, try. I dare you.
Right. Who was the one? Didn't we have the one episode where they sent the Union sent women out to get water for them?
And they allowed it.
They're like, well, you got to kill the women.
All right.
Sibley, who during the morning had remained with the wagons, relinquished command of the brigade, and Greene took over, who then handed command of the 5th Texas over to Major Samuel Lockridge. So we got a little regime change here, huh?
Right.
Around 2 p.m., Greene authorized a Lancer company to attempt a charge on what they thought was an inexperienced New Mexico company on the Union extreme right. However, The Union soldiers turned out to be a Colorado company, which was able to defeat the charge without breaking. 20 of the Lancers were killed or wounded during the charge, with almost all the horses disabled or killed as well.
Okay.
When it returned to the Confederate line, the Lancer Company rearmed itself with pistols and shotguns and continued fighting in the battle.
All right.
Well, good for them. This was the first and last Lancer charge of the American Civil War. They're like, first and last Lancer charge. They're like, wait, this ain't the Revolutionary War no more. We can't get away with this shit.
You guys want to pull up the OG? Yeah, that's true. Let's do it.
I got old school on these bitches.
Look at they're trying to go old school. Nope, we ain't doing that. Jeez. By 4 p.m., the Union appeared to have the advantage in the battle. Canby decided that a massive frontal assault would fail, and instead decided to attack the Confederate.
I don't think it would have.
No, they should have straight on. To do so, he ordered one of his batteries on his right to redeploy closer to the Confederate line, and then moved several companies to his right, including Carson's 1st New Mexico Regiment, which crossed the river and took its place in line. However, this repositioning of the troops weakened the center of the Union line and the battery on Canby's left.
It's just wild hearing it and reading it.
Right.
Where it's, he redeployed over here and moved this guy over here. It's like he's like on the chessboard or the risk board moving his guys around and checking.
That's how I picture it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hoping to stall the Union attack, Greene ordered Major Henry Raguet to attack the Union right with his battalion. This attack was repulsed by frontal fire and a flank attack from the 1st New Mexico, and the Union right advanced after the retreating Confederates. Didn't work. At this time, Greene ordered the Confederate right wing under the command of Scurry to charge the Union center and the battery on its left. The attack force of 750 men was arranged into 3 successive waves.
Oh, the Confederates were motivated in large part by their desperate need for water.
Yeah, I think,
right.
What do they call it? Desperation, man. That'll lead you to do a lot of things.
And the only way to get to water is by dislodging the Union troops' blockade.
But yeah, on the Rio Grande.
Right. The shock of the Confederate charge caused over half of the battery's supporting force to rout. They're out of here. Lockridge was...
Rout.
Right.
Means they
ran
whooped ass.
Right. Or
they routed.
Right.
Which means they whoop ass.
Right. Which means who were still alive ran like a motherfucker.
No.
Lockridge was mortally wounded during the attack. The Federals countered with a cavalry charge, but the main Confederate forces continued to press their assault on Canby's left flank, capturing 6 artillery pieces and breaking the Union battle line, which soon turned into a panic-stricken retreat of both regular troops and New Mexico volunteers. Like I said, routed them.
Sibley was about to order another attack when Canby sent a white flag asking for a truce to remove the bodies of the dead and wounded, to which Sibley gentlemanly agreed. He was like, well, we got it anyways, right?
Right.
Canby managed to reorganize his men, minus about 200 deserters, from among the New Mexico volunteers, and ordered a retreat back to Fort Craig, leaving the road northward towards Santa Fe open to the Confederates.
Sure was. Like, well, we tried. Left in the possession of the battlefield, the Confederates gained nothing after this victory.
Right. They gave way too much for what just happened there.
They suffered substantial casualties. 36 dead, 150 wounded, 1 missing though, out of 2,590 men.
That's
2,590. Owing to the strength of the fort's walls, Sibley decided to abandon his attempt to capture the fort, thus ceding the battlefield back to the Union control, and instead continued northwards towards Albuquerque and Santa Fe.
7.1% of their troops were either injured or killed in that battle. I think that's pretty substantial, right? I mean, that's a lot. That's a big percentage. If you were to multiply that by if they had 100,000 men, 7% of 100,000 men, that's 7,000 men, dude. That's crazy. You know? Right? It's a big percentage.
It's possible. It is a lot. 7,000 out of 100,000? I don't think so. I think they're willing to let that go. As long as it's not like 10%. You don't want to get in double digits.
It's still a lot, though.
Right.
7%, that's a lot. He didn't care about the Fort Craig. Was, I mean, whatever. It was a bonus if we could have got it, but really, Santa Fe is what they want.
Right. Where he wanted to go to Santa Fe anyway, when he wanted to get some supplies. However, he was severely hampered by the losses in horses and mules from the battle, which forced him to dismount the 4th Texas as infantry and to destroy some supplies and wagons. Dang.
Get out there, man. He couldn't transport them. Canby reported that his forces had 3 officers and 65 men killed. Wow. 3 officers and 157 men wounded, and 1 officer and 35 men missing, for a total of 264. That's about 8 or 9% of, well, I don't know how many people did he have? 2,800 men? About 7% for them too, huh? He also had an additional missing and deserters, mostly deserters, thus suffering a 16% casualty rate. Whoa.
Dang.
Including deserters of 432 out of 2,800 men. Yeah,
Dang.
so 16% of his army was gone. Considered himself to be outnumbered, he chose not to pursue Sibley, instead sending mounted detachments of New Mexico volunteers, you know, the majority of who deserted. I guess the Confederates rare for harassment, and orders to Albuquerque and Santa Fe to destroy all supply depots and other means the invaders might support themselves. He would remain with the main body at Fort Craig to cut off the Confederate supply line and to intercept reinforcements for Sibley, eventually planning to pin the main Confederate body between himself and Union reinforcements at Fort Union. Yeah, so Fort Craig was pretty... You need that, though.
I think they
have supplies, man.
Yeah, I think Confederate needed to go get it. Neither Sibley nor Canby received high marks for their generalship during that battle, and they shouldn't have. Sibley was indisposed by alcohol and illness, spent most of the day riding in an ambulance. Colonel Greene was the de facto commander, and it was his aggressive attack on Canby's center and the left that won the battle. So they're happy for that guy, right?
Right.
But Canby blamed the New Mexican volunteers, mostly Hispanics, for his loss.
Of course he did.
But his decision to enforce his right while weakening his center and left was the real cause of the Union defeat.
Probably, right.
We both said it when he did it.
Mm-hmm.
On Canby's right wing, Kit Carson's regiment of New Mexican volunteers saw only limited action, but comported itself well.
Right. You gotta pay attention to your surroundings, man. People are doing well. You gotta get them up in there.
Right.
Volunteers were advancing and thought they were winning the battle. They were incredulous when Canby gave their order to retreat. They're like, what the hell, man? We're doing good. The battle represented Canby's low point in his military career and Sibley's high point. 2 men would go in the opposite directions in terms of reputation after the battle, though.
I think they were scared to go to the fort, like what he said. It's too well defended. How do you know?
Right. It was rumored following the battle that the 2 commanders of these battles, Canby and Sibley, who had been allies and trained together earlier, were actually brothers-in-law. However, research revealed little, if any, evidence that they were related by marriage.
I mean, so what? Let them have it.
And if they were, I mean, whatever. It's
let them have it.
Another tale of brothers versus brothers, right?
Why you guys always got to fact-check everything? let them be
can't
brother-in-laws.
let truth get into a way of a good story.
Hey. Moving on there. That was somewhat of a win by the Confederate. It was a pointless battle there.
Yep.
Shouldn't have never been done. If they were going to do it, they should have been more stocked.
Went all out, man.
More stocked and just...
Well, they waited for how many days? Depleted their stocks.
Dummy. The Battle of Island Number 10. That's where we're going next.
That's where we're going next.
That was, took place at Kentucky Bend on the Mississippi River, lasting from February 28th to 8th of April. Dang.
Wow.
1862.
All right.
Island Number 10 owed its name to the fact that it was at one time the 10th island in the Mississippi River south of its junction with the Ohio. What do you mean at one time? Where's the other islands at now?
Not anymore.
Dang.
Can't be, I mean, maybe there's got to be there's a special limit on what you can call an island. It might look like it.
Right. Basically, you can call it an enlarged sandbar, roughly 1 mile long and 450 yards wide at a maximum width, standing about 10 feet above the low water.
I mean,
that's a sandbar.
That's not a sandbar. A mile long and 450 yards wide?
Yeah, it's a giant
It's a little island.
It's not an island.
Yeah, it's a
you
little
can't live
island.
on it.
Of course you can.
Nah. That river rises a foot.
Well, they built forts on them. Confederates did, anyways. On rivers that rise, you know, the last battle before Fort Donelson, one flooded, remember?
The idiots.
Right. More important than the island itself was the course of the river in its neighborhood.
Okay.
Island number 10 was at the southern extremity of a clockwise turn of the river through 180 degrees, which is followed immediately by a counterclockwise turn that left the river moving almost parallel to its original course. So it's like it's like a hairpin, right?
Right.
But displaced to the west by about 8 miles. The turns are quite tight. The distance from southern limit of the first turn to the northern limit of the second is only 9 miles by air, or 12 miles measured along the river channel. That is tight, huh?
That is tight. The double bend, which still exists in almost the same exact location today, is known as the New Madrid Bend as well. However, the area across the Mississippi River from New Madrid, Missouri, on the Kentucky and Tennessee shore was known as Madrid Bend during the Civil War. Okay. So it wasn't the Kentucky Bend during the Civil War.
Right.
The town of New Madrid, pronounced Madrid.
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 This New Madrid.
The town of New Madrid. There you go.
Yeah.
Which gives the bend its name, is at the northern apex of the second Twain.
Okay.
Pointless information.
It's not. The mainland behind the island on the south side was connected to the town of Tiptonville, Tennessee, by a good road, on the natural levee of the river. Levee of the river.
This called
the good road. This was the only approach to the island on dry land through Tennessee, as the region is otherwise a mixture of lakes, sloughs, and swamps, with the nearest high ground nearly 10 miles to the east. Wow.
It slows.
Real Foot Lake. The largest of these was 40 miles long, and in places 10 miles wide. In low water, the northern end of the Real Foot Lake was near Tiptonville, but in high water, such as was present in the spring of 1862, it extended north to beyond the bend. Depending on what time you're in, you get somewhere, but you can't.
Just
maybe.
Beyond the river bend, the water was nowhere very deep. So individual soldiers could cross it by wading or using makeshift rafts.
Damn, dude, that whole 40-mile long and 10-mile wide, there was anywhere you can walk across it? That's cool.
Or use rafts. Because maybe it was like 10 feet. 10 feet.
Right.
That's not deep.
Right.
But an army trying to do so would not be able to move it with heavy equipment and also would lose cohesion.
Right.
For these reasons, Island Number 10 was considered to be invulnerable to land attack from the Tennessee side.
Okay.
It also meant, however, that the only route for either reinforcement or escape was the Tiptonville Road.
One way in, one way out, baby.
Tiptonville Road. That's
Tiptonville.
you don't have to have that many names.
Right.
Call it Tipton Road.
So many syllables, man.
Or Tipton. Well, you have Tiptonville.
Tipville. The land on the Missouri side was higher, although not high enough to give guns mounted there an advantage of plunging fire.
Right.
The river banks, about 30 feet above low water, were only about 1/3 as high as the bluffs, had aided the Confederate defense against gunboats at the Battle of Fort Donelson. Right. At high water, although shore-based guns would not be drowned as they had been at the Battle of Fort Henry, which we discussed earlier, they would have nevertheless been no higher than the guns of vessels on the river.
On the river.
Right, so you can't get that good shoot-down effect, you know?
Right. That's rough, man, when you're trying to fight water to land or land to water, dude. I just wouldn't do it.
Just wouldn't do it, man.
It's not doing it. Can you imagine being Navy sitting out there like, where's the enemy? And like, they ain't coming.
That's good for us then, right?
Right. During the first year of the war, the Confederate forces in the West went through a series of command changes that were often confusing.
Let's talk about confusing. Have you heard one of our episodes? Shit.
Yes. And left we made it even more confusing. And left responsibility for particular actions hard to pin down.
Right.
Although New Madrid was in Missouri, it was in a pro-southern part of the state, and therefore fell within the purview of the Confederate Department Number 2. In command of the department was Major General Leonidas Polk.
Oh, we've heard this guy already, huh?
Right. The region of the Bend was brought to official notice by one of Polk's subordinates, Brigadier General Gideon J. Pillow. We're getting some familiarities.
Yep.
Similarities.
Some familiarities.
Neither Pillow nor Polk was actively involved in developing the defenses at the Bend. The latter assigned an Army engineer, Captain Asa B. Gray, to the task, but he was not given adequate resources.
Well, okay, so why assign him then in the first place?
More shitty decisions there.
Right. September 15th, General Albert Sidney Johnston superseded Polk in command of Department Number 2, with Polk remaining in a subordinate position.
All right.
Like his predecessor, Johnston took no active interest in Island Number 10. Early February, just in time for the fall of Forts Henry and Donelson, just in time,
right.
General P.G.T. Beauregard was sent to the west to command the Army of the Mississippi and became, in effect, Johnston's second in command. He recognized the importance of Island Number 10 and issued the orders to abandon Columbus and move its garrison there.
Geez.
Gotta take it, man.
He's like, yeah, I need to go to Island Number 10.
But unfortunately for him, his health failed at this time, so he could not take personal charge.
Oh, jeez. That sucks. When he recovered, though, he and General Johnston were preoccupied with preparations for the forthcoming Battle of Shiloh. Yeah, that was a big one. Transferred from Columbus to Island Number 10 was Major General John P. McCown, who thereby became local commander.
He's like, I run this shit now.
Yeah. He remained in charge until after New Madrid was taken by the Union Army of the Mississippi. On March 31st, 1862, he was replaced by Brigadier General William W. Mackle. Through all of these command changes, the vessels of the Confederate States Navy along the entire length of the Mississippi were led by Flag Officer George N. Hollins. Because the river lay in two military departments, Hollins had to work with both the man in charge at the New Madrid Bend and the man in charge at the defenses of New Orleans.
Okay, so now he's going through two different people, who knows, dude?
Right.
At this time, command of the Union forces was also in flux. But it had little bearing on the issue. From the time the campaign against New Madrid began in late February of 1862, the Army of Mississippi was led by Major General John Pope. Okay,
John Pope.
right. The Army was part of, first, the Department of Missouri, and after March 11th, the Department of the Mississippi, both under Major General Henry W. Halleck.
Okay.
Heard his name before.
Right.
The name change represented organizational changes in the Army that did not affect the campaign. The warships employed in the campaign were part of the Western Gunboat Flotilla led by Flag Officer Andrew Hall Foote. Foote was a captain in the U.S. Navy, but the flotilla was organized as part of the U.S. Army, so he reported to and was a subordinate to Halleck.
Okay.
You remember in the last episode?
Right.
Yeah, last episode,
Right.
or 2 episodes ago with Fort Henry,
Right.
the Army wanted their own gunboats. They were like, screw you, Navy.
Right. Right. The widespread publicity given to Union General-in-Chief Wilfield Scott's Anaconda's plan,
Or Winfield.
right, made the Confederate government aware of the threat that would be posed to the Mississippi Valley by a waterborne invasion along the course of the river. In response, they set up a series of defensive positions alongside the river. Among them were Fort Pillow, 40 miles north of Memphis, and another somewhat of a fort at Columbus, Kentucky, both of which positions were important in relation to Island Number 10.
Yeah.
Dang, I wanted to have a t-shirt that says Island Number 10.
I know.
Because I'm an island boy.
I go number 10. I got battalion on island number 10.
Oh, jeez. It is. Construction of the batteries on and near the island began in mid-August 1861. So, wow, it's been happening for a while now. Directed by Captain Asa B. Gray. He began by laying out a battery on the Tennessee shore about 1.5 miles above the island. Okay, so they've been working on this for a while.
You need a battery that's going to overlook the island in case some shit happens. You can fire down on them bitches. Yeah. Good for them.
And I would even still have something on the side that they say is
impenetrable or invulnerable. They said
invulnerable. I'll still have something there.
All right. Well, this battery, known as Battery Number 1 or the Redan battery, commanded the approach to the bend. Vessels coming down the river would have to move directly towards its guns for more than a mile. Oh, so you're under fire for a whole lot of time.
Fire.
It was not very effective as it was sited on low ground subject to flooding.
Oh, geez.
These guys just couldn't. They didn't have surveyors or like. It's like nobody, even before the Civil War, nobody surveyed this stuff. You know, there had to have been like land surveys around, unless it was all like part of the Union. The Union would, I don't know. They didn't give them access to it, obviously. You know. But the Union don't even know, so what the hell? They had no surveys.
I think locals would know.
Somebody would know, right? Almost as soon as work was started, however, the attention of Major General Leonidas Polk was diverted to the capture and fortification of Columbus. Work continued at Island Number 10, but it was not regarded as urgent, and so was denied both equipment and workers. Well, this is a Class A battle, so it seems pretty important. Looks like you guys screwed up, huh, Confederates?
All right, the importance of the New Madrid bed rose dramatically when Fort Henry and Fort Donelson
Yeah, see, that's
fell.
the thing. When those two fell, they're like, damn.
Right. When they fell to Union forces early February.
A couple episodes ago.
Yeah, Columbus was cut off from the rest of the Confederate Army.
Yeah.
And faced capture by Union troops by advancing overland from the Tennessee River to the Mississippi. To avoid losing the garrison and its equipment, General Beauregard ordered that the position be abandoned as quietly as possible.
Quietly. He's like, I don't want nobody hearing about this. We're going to go through the night like
the process began on 24th February when the first members of the Columbus garrison arrived at Island Number 10.
So he's like, bye, Columbus, hi, Island Number 10.
Right.
2 days later, its new commander, Brigadier General John P. McCown, arrived, and he immediately set to work to strengthen the position from Battery Number 1 to Point Pleasant. McCown, with adequate resources, was able to transform the island and nearby mainland into a formidable obstacle for any fleet attempting to pass. So now they're building this shit up.
All right.
Real force. By the middle of March, 5 batteries containing 24 guns had been built on the shore above the island. 19 guns were in 5 batteries on the island itself. And the floating battery New Orleans with 9 guns was moored at the west end of the island. So, damn, dude, they got some guns here.
You got to.
Yeah, that's your last chance. You
Man.
just lost two forts.
All right. In addition, 2 forts had been set up at New Madrid. Fort Thompson to the west with 14 guns, and Fort Bankhead with 7 guns to the east, where St. John's Bayou met the Mississippi. So you got Fort Thompson to the west with 14 guns, and you got Fort Bankhead to the east with 7 guns.
Right. And this is all just surrounding island number 10, dude.
Right. The Confederate Navy also supported this position. Flag Officer George N. Hollins commanded 6 gunboats in the river between Fort Pillow and island number 10. All of these were unarmored. Ooh. The armored ram CSS Manassas would have been there also, but she was found to be unable to operate with the relatively shallow water. And also, she was damaged by running aground on the way north, so she was sent back to Nolens.
Well, you just go back to Nolens.
Yeah.
Preparations by the Union for the attack on New Madrid, and vicinity began before the evacuation of Columbus. February 23rd, 1862, Major General Pope was placed in command of the Union Army of the Mississippi, assembling at Commerce, Missouri. It was common practice at this time to go into winter quarters and await the arrival of good weather in the spring. But Pope soon had his army, which at this early stage of the campaign, they numbered 10,000 men. He had them on the march, which they were corduroying roads when necessary.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they made basically walkways with timbers.
Right. It's a swampy area.
Right.
Get it.
So like in the Old West, when you see them like got the timbers out because it's muddy as shit, you know. Corduroy. I did not know that was called corduroying roads. Cool.
Learn something new every day.
Corduroy pants. That's what they get their lines from. Is from the timbers, I guess, right?
Yep. The army arrived at New Madrid on March 3rd, but were not yet prepared to attack Confederate positions. Preparing for a siege, Pope requested that his army be supplied with some heavy artillery, which arrived on the 12th of March.
Damn, it was old 9 days later.
The gunboats under Flag Officer Andrew H. Foote were not ready to cooperate with the Army of the Mississippi at this early date, as the damages they had
Navy
received.
and Army.
Right. All right. Well,
They didn't get along very well, though.
They just got their ass whooped at Fort Donelson.
It's true.
They're like, we're not even got our repairs
They
yet.
didn't get their ass whooped,
Right.
but they got some damage.
Right. They're like, we can't help you. We're still repairing our boats, guys. They were finally set down from Cairo on the 14th of March, with Foote yet believing that they were not ready for combat.
He said, we're not ready yet. We got a little bit more planning to do, I think.
You must follow your orders.
Right.
The Union fleet was augmented by the addition of 14 mortar rafts, vessels that each mounted a single 13-inch mortar under the command of Captain Henry E. Maynadier.
Maynadier.
Of the Army, though.
Of the Army, right? I was just about to point that out. The Army over here. So they had an Army guy. The Navy guy's like, shh, asshole.
All right.
Unwilling to waste his troops in assault on the forts at New Madrid, Pope sent a brigade under Colonel, who was later Brigadier General Joseph B. Plummer, to occupy the town of Point Pleasant, which was on the right bank of the river, almost directly opposite of island number 10.
Perfect. He should have been there in the first place.
The movement was contested by the Confederate gunboats, but Plummer's troops soon learned that they had only to withdraw out of range when the gunboats appeared, and as soon as they left, yeah, right, just you literally they could see where the shots are landing. Like you step a foot back, you're fine, dude. The brigade occupied Point Pleasant on March 6th, and the boats shelled their positions for the next 3 days. In this period, the Confederate Army remained within their fortifications, offering no support to the Flag Officer Hollins.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they're like, dude, what do you want us to do? We can't do anything.
They don't know what to do.
You shell them. Hopefully, one guy's an idiot and walks too far off to piss, and you may be able to hit him or something.
The siege guns.
Why would they continue to bombard them if they knew that their stuff wasn't hitting?
The siege guns arrived on 12th of March, surprising McCown and Hollins almost as much as the winter march of Pope's army.
Right. They're like, dude, they're doing all this in the winter?
Right. They effectively closed the river to the unarmored gunboats and prevented reinforcement of the artillery companies at New Madrid by shifting troops from island number 10. The big guns opened fire on the New Madrid defense positions on the 13th of March and continued throughout the day. McCown realized that Pope would try to attack his forts by regular approaches. He felt that his reduced artillery companies would be too exhausted to resist, so he decided not to wait for the inevitable.
Yeah, he's like, we're not waiting, because on the night of March 13th, overnight, March 13th, 14th, orders were given to abandon the town and its 2 forts.
Oh, wow.
A heavy rainstorm hid the troop movements from the enemy, so the evacuation was accomplished without incident. There was some confusion, as there usually is, which seems to have been exaggerated in Pope's reports, and the departure was so sudden that the guns in the forts had to be spiked and left behind, but most of the troops were successfully removed and redistributed.
Oh, jeez. You gotta leave equipment behind. That's the worst part.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You never want your equipment getting in the hands of the enemy.
No, I mean, geez, OP, what are you thinking, guys? That was just, they don't agree with this whole situation that's been happening at all.
Yeah, both these battles are pretty screwed, dude. But making some weird decisions going on here.
The morning of 14th of March, 2 deserters appeared bearing a white flag and informed Pope that the town was deserted.
And it's like, dude, you guys don't need to do anything else. Everybody left.
All right. Following the loss at New Madrid, some of the units at the Bend were withdrawn to Fort Pillow. Not quite 70 air miles to the south, but almost twice that by the river. Dang.
Damn.
McCown,
Going around bends and
just
shit.
around the river bends. It's an hour
Just
away.
around the
Are we
bends.
almost there? Just around the bend.
Just around 70,000 bends.
Right. McCown was replaced in command at the island by Brigadier General William W. McCall.
Okay.
Or Mackle. Although this looks like a reprimand for his poor defense of New Madrid, McCown actually was promoted to Major General.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, it was a demotion.
Well, still Brigadier General is not a demotion, though. Ups his pay. The gunboats and mortars arrived on March 15th, and the siege is dated from that time. Pope and New Madrid and Foote upstream of the Bend were kept apart by Island Number 10. From the get-go, they did not agree on how to go about conducting the operation. Pope wanted immediate action. Foote hoped to subdue the island by the slow process of bombardment. Foote was hampered by ambiguous or even contradictory orders from Halleck, who was distracted at the time by preparations for the advance along the Tennessee River that soon culminated in the Battle of Shiloh. So we got the Navy guy, Foote, thinking we should do this, we need to bombard, and Pope's like, no, man, we need to go right over there and just hand it to him. Boom, 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 boom. Send people. And meanwhile, the governing guy, Halleck, is just like, yeah, Battle of Shiloh.
Right.
What is Island Number 10?
Right, Island Number 10, which is... It is a major point, though, man. You got to have that spot.
Gotta have it. Dude, they've been just slowly going up that little river right there and taking all the forts away.
It's terrible. As early as the 17th of March, Pope was asking that 2 or 3 gunboats run past the Confederate batteries to enable him to cross the river and trap the entire garrison. Foote demurred, arguing that his boats were not invincible, he says.
Didn't you just see what happened in Fort Donelson?
That a chance of disabling shot would deliver a boat into Confederate hands, and that gunboat could be a threat to all northern cities along the Mississippi and its tributaries.
Right, because the Confederates right now have like no suitable gunboats that are going to do anything against the Union.
Right, they give them that.
He's like, you guys want to give them a boat?
Right, jeez. Foote's thinking may have also been affected by the wound he had received at Fort Donelson, which was not healing properly and kept him in pain and on crutches. Ooh.
Yeah, he was probably like, yeah, I'm not trying to get shot again, dude.
Yeah, like I might die of gangrene.
Yeah. For the next 2 weeks, fighting consisted of a bombardment of the island at rather long range, mostly conducted by the mortars and occasionally replied to by the Confederate batteries. High expectations that had been held for the mortars were dashed. They did very little harm to the enemy position. I mean, they're mortars.
Right.
The most significant damage incurred in this period was, in fact, self-inflicted.
Oh, jeez.
During a bombardment on March 17th in which the gunboats took part, a gun on the USS St. Louis exploded.
Oh, man.
Killing 3 members of the crew and wounding a dozen officers.
Oh.
That reminds me of Fort Sumter when the only casualties were when they were raising the flags.
Right. Ridiculous. After Foote had flatly rejected Pope's request that the gunboats run past Island Number 10, someone on Pope's staff suggested that perhaps a canal could be cut to enable Union vessels to bypass the batteries.
That's a long time.
Right. The canal was completed in 2 weeks.
Jeez.
2 weeks later.
Well,
But it was not deep enough to provide passage for the gunboats.
yeah, because they built a trench where that a little paper boat couldn't even flow through. Like, is this good enough?
It proved useful, nevertheless, and the transports and supply of vessels could use
because
it.
they're not big enough.
Right.
You know, they're not huge.
So that Pope did not have to depend on land communication.
Okay, so something could came out of it, I guess, right?
Not what they wanted, though.
Right. Pope still insisted that he needed a gunboat to cover his projected landing on the Tennessee side of the river. Foote called 2 councils of war among his captains. In the first, on March of the 20th, his decision not to risk running past the batteries was confirmed. When Halleck wrote to Foote saying, quote unquote, give him all the assistance in your power. Foote called a second council on March 29th. This time, Commander Henry Walk, captain of the USS Karen, thought that the risk was worth the candle.
Okay.
And volunteered to take his boat through.
Oh.
Foote gave the necessary orders, and the Karen was prepared for the run. Here we go. So
Nice. She was covered with rope, chain, and whatever loose material they had on hand.
yeah, man, and lessen those shots coming on the sides, right?
A coal barge filled with coal and hay was lashed to her side.
Okay, all right, good.
Her steam exhaust was diverted from the smokestacks, called chimneys on the rivercraft, to muffle the sound. She then
Steam exhaust was diverted from the smoke sacks.
Right. called
Where was
chimneys.
it diverted, though?
She had then only to wait for a sufficiently dark night to make her run.
Yep. Can't see it.
Right.
Can't hear it.
To reduce the danger as much as possible, a raid by sailors and flotilla and soldiers from the 42nd Illinois Infantry under Colonel George W. Roberts overran Battery Number 1, spiked its guns on the night of April 1st.
Ooh, it was like, we're going to spike that shit.
April 2nd, the flotilla included both mortars and gunboats, concentrated its fire on the floating battery New Orleans.
Right. They got their battle plan in motion now. No
Nice.
turning back now.
Right.
The floating battery New Orleans was hit several times, and her mooring lines were parted. She ain't floating, or she ain't connected to the shore no more. She drifted downstream out of the war, ineffective. April 4th, conditions for running past the remaining batteries were satisfactory. The night was moonless, and after a dark thunderstorm came up. Perfect conditions. Nobody can see shit. Karen DeLay made her way downstream and was not discovered until she was abreast of the Confederate Battery Number 2. Snuck right up on them. She might have escaped detection completely had not her smokestacks blazed up. So they were a little visible. The buildup of soot, no longer dampened by escaping steam, caught fire and revealed her position. The batteries opened fire, but their fire was inaccurate, and the Karen DeLay completed the run unscathed.
Oh. Pope continued to press foot for another gunboat. He's like, are you kidding me? You see?
Oh, that one was successful. Why not?
All right, I'll do it again. And 2 nights later, USS Pittsburgh made a similar run.
Good for them.
Pope now was able to cross the river with his army without prospect of interference from Confederate gunboats. He could also suppress enemy fire that may have opposed their landing.
Right, dude.
7th
Look at this fucking
right,
guy, dude.
Right. On the 7th of April, he made his move, sent the gunboats to destroy the batteries at Watson's Landing, the place he had selected for the attack. When this was accomplished, the transports carried the troops across, and the landings proceeded without opposition.
Damn, he had to feel good about that, huh? A few hours elapsed until McCall was able to decide what to do next.
Right.
Realizing that his position was hopeless, he put the men on the mainland in motion in the direction of Tiptonville. The motion was detected by Pope's spies, who gave the information to Pope. Pope then diverted his soldiers to Tiptonville, and the operation became a foot race rather than the expected battle. Right, who's going to get there first?
Right.
McCall's only hope was that the gunboats would not interfere, but they did.
They did.
And the retreat of his army was delayed long enough for Pope's men to get into Tiptonville first. The defenders were trapped with no prospect of victory, so McCall decided to surrender.
Hey.
While this was taking place, the demoralized garrison of the Island Number 10 surrendered separately to Flag Officer Foote and his gunboats. The river was then open as far as Fort Pillow.
Oh, wow. The destruction of the Confederate garrison was complete. Only a few hundred individual soldiers managed to escape by wading or rafting across Real Foot Lake and later rejoined the army.
Or at least they rejoined, right?
Maybe they did. Who knows?
Right.
The number who were captured became a matter of controversy.
And as always, is the death tolls and capture and all that.
Right. Pope asserted in his official reports that he had taken 273 officers, 6,700 private soldiers captive. Dang. This is almost certainly a great exaggeration.
Obviously.
Confederate records, admittedly incomplete, indicate that not more than 5,350 men were present.
Right.
The number captured would more than been likely to be less than 4,500.
Still a significant amount. But what do we got? Dead people voting situation here?
Right.
Aside from the prisoners taken, the number of casualties in the entire campaign was very low. From the fall of New Madrid to the surrender at Tiptonville, the Union Army and Navy had only lost 7 men killed from all causes.
Wow.
4 missing and 14 wounded. Damn, they made out like great, right?
Right.
Well, on the other side, during the entire campaign, losses in the Army of the Mississippi were reported as 8 killed, 21 wounded, and 3 missing.
Okay.
Oh, so that was both Union, though.
Right,
So
both
all in
Union.
all, what, 15 killed. Confederate losses in killed and wounded were not reported, but seem to have been similarly low. Although Beauregard sought early release for the men captured at Island Number 10, the offer was declined, and several soldiers' wives who had been employed at the island chose to go north into captivity alongside their husbands. Why not, right?
Right.
Stand by your man.
That's a rough little blow there to the old ribs.
Yep.
About 1,400 of the captured Confederate soldiers, mainly from the 1st Regiment Alabama Infantry, were transported by railroad to what was previously a Union Army training field, to now a concentration camp.
Basically,
In Madison, Wisconsin.
No,
they take you up to Madison.
What do they call it?
Winter's cold up here.
What is China calling it? A re-education camp
Right,
now?
right.
Like, what the fuck you need to re-educate?
Jeez. They take them up to Madison, Wisconsin, though. They're like, you guys are about to be cold. There's some cold winters up here. You're going to like it. This marked the beginning of the Camp Randall's use of a prisoner of war.
POW camp. Isn't Camp Randall the...
Camp Randall is something.
Camp Randall isn't the football stadium name of Wisconsin?
Is it Camp Randall?
I think it's Camp Randall. Yeah.
Nice. From the end of April to the end of May, 140 of the prisoners died at Camp Randall.
Oh, jeez.
Due to its unsanitary conditions.
I bet.
And are buried at Confederate Rest.
Which is a cemetery, I'm assuming, in or near
We're gonna have to go
Madison.
We're gonna have to go check that out, eh?
It's only a couple hours away. It's a place in Forest Hill Cemetery in Madison, Wisconsin.
It's in a cemetery.
Yeah, It's only Forest Hill Cemetery.
Right, it's only 140 people. Right?
It's the northernmost Confederate graveyard in the nation.
It's a northern.
Northernmost, so it's the highest Confederates are buried in the United States.
Because the 7th of April was the second day of the way bloodier, deadlier Battle of Shiloh.
Yep.
The campaign for Island Number 10 fell from public notice.
It has become memorable principally for the run of the USS Karen delay past the batteries, whose patches marked the introduction of a new tactic in warfare. The use of steam for driving ships meant that they no longer had to slug it out with fixed forts.
Nice.
Well, the tactic later became commonplace in the Civil War, being employed by Farragut at New Orleans, Port Hudson, Vicksburg, and Mobile.
Fantastic.
By David D. Porter and by David D. Porter at Vicksburg. So,
nice.
Good for him.
Nice. Consequently, the valued fixed fortification was much diminished.
Mm-hmm.
The South did not learn this lesson, continuing to rely on forts until the end of the war.
Right. Didn't they? The South, besides Fort Sumter, which was the beginning and kind of caught the Union off guard,
Right.
the South has not guarded any forts good, dude, at all.
At all. But the restored nation had to consider it when designing its defense system after 1865, right?
I mean, you still need some defense on the rivers.
Right. In addition, the impact of the season and weather should also be recognized aiding Union efforts.
Yeah.
If the Federals had arrived later in the summer after the spring freshet of high water,
Right.
then their naval options would have been much more limited. No back channel could have been carved out.
All right.
And
They never would have made the canal.
And the Confederates' chance for defensive withdrawal likely much improved.
Right. So it all depended on that was what brilliant from Polk to do in the wintertime.
Right.
Wow. See, it all had to do conditions. Conditions are right. They say right place, right time. That's exactly what happened with the unit here.
Did.
We got a split outcome today. Battle of Valverde.
Uno de uno.
Right. Confederates take the first one since December 28th,
Well,
1861.
did they, though?
Well, they did.
Well,
Technically. And then this battle lasted over a month. A strategic battle of Island Number 10 now belongs to the Union. And bad news for the Confederate because they don't win another battle until April 15th.
but is it really a win?
And
I guess a moral victory.
we still got an A battle coming up, Battle of Pea Ridge. A couple B's after that. Then we got the Battle of Glorieta Pass, another A battle. Then the Battle of Shiloh coming up. April 6th through 7th coming up in our run towards the Union victory of the American Civil War. And that's what we'll cover next week is the Battle of Pea Ridge and probably the Battle of Hampton Roads, which is in Virginia, a B battle, which is inconclusive. So that's what we got coming up here. Another American history, trying to kind of true crime stuff. We do another podcast called Outlaws and Gunslingers where we take a look at the Wild West immediately after the Civil War. So this is leading up into what the Wild West is about to become. And then
there's some stuff before the Civil War, too.
Oh, yeah. We got Prohibition. We just finished up the O.J. Simpson murder trial. 3 episodes on that. And the Bass School Massacre is our most recent one.
Ooh.
And we got a lot of stuff in between that. Plus, we're coming up on the Mafia. That's all over at the Outlaws and Gunslingers podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Hey, I'm walking here. Outlaws and Gunslingers, wherever you get your podcasts. And for us at the Battle of the American Civil War, we'll be back next